Are you losing your mind? Well, it's something that we joke about, but certainly there's nobody who wants to lose their mind. There is nobody who wants to go into the later years of their life with their mind not working well. And yet, sadly, it's estimated that within about 15, 20 years from now, that people my age, that when we start reaching our 80s, 50% of the people my age right now heading into their 80s are going to have dementia, Alzheimer's disease, some other way that our brains are not going to be functioning. 50-50 chance when you reach your 80s that you will have Alzheimer's or dementia. That's a big number. That's just a coin toss. And so it is important, no matter what age you are now, it is so very important that you do the right things in order to keep your brain healthy and avoid doing the wrong things that will lead you toward hurting your brain and may result in some of these brain diseases like dementia. So, whether you're ADHD or not, these are things we need to do to keep our brains healthy, and these are things we need to do to avoid in order to keep your brain healthy. So in this video today, we're going to talk about things to avoid, choices to avoid making so that you can keep your brain healthier as you head into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then we're going to have a follow-up video on this that'll be things to do that will help your brain to remain healthy. Now, the reality is, if you hit 80 years old and you start to have dementia or Alzheimer's, which is a form of dementia, if that's what's going on, it started back in your 40s. This disease process started way back then. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes quite a while for this kind of process in your brain to take place. And the really good news is that it is reversible to a great degree. Whatever damage you do in your 20s, 30s, 40s can be reversed in your 40s, 50s, and 60s so that you can head into your 80s with a totally well-functioning mind. So let's look at some of the things first to avoid doing so that you can keep your mind. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is perhaps the most important. It's not the most severe, but it might be the most important, and that is what you eat. Now I used to eat horrible stuff, and on the way home from working at the hospital, driving home, I'd stop at a Jack in the Box, and I'd get some really incredibly tasty, awful thing to eat. And as I would do that, kind of as a habit, I was listening to different business coaches, and one of these men, I don't even remember who it was, he said, "We dig our graves one bite at a time." And that stuck, and that was like 25 years ago. So let it stick with you that we lose our minds one bite at a time. If you have ADHD, what you eat or do not eat really does, in fact, matter a great deal. And so the first thing is for you to make the decision, make the choice to eat good foods and not to eat bad foods. Just don't eat bad foods. Don't eat things out of a cellophane wrapper. Don't eat at bad restaurants. Don't eat junk food. This may be the single most important decision that you make today. It's just the decision not to eat things out of cellophane wrappers, not to eat things from those fast food places that you know put stuff in the food that you shouldn't be eating, just to make the decision not to eat there. Yeah, will it cost a little bit more? No. At the end of the day, it doesn't cost any more. That's significant. But it could cost you more, certainly, later in your life. You also want to avoid foods that are sprayed with pesticides. Just make sure you wash your vegetables and so on. Pesticides are bad. Hey, around your house, don't spray with Roundup anymore. Just don't do it. It's just a bad idea. I live on 2 acres out in the country. It's a beautiful place we live. And the easiest thing for me to do is just to spray every year with Roundup. And I don't. It is just, don't do it. Avoid high carbohydrate foods, high carbohydrate drinks, high sugar foods, high sugar drinks. Now, once in a while, you can have some ice cream. That's fine. But that's just because that's part of life. But those Pepsis every day that you have like 6 of every day, they got to go because you're putting like 10 spoons of sugar in every glass that you pour it into. You just have to stop. You have to change some habits. And so those high carbohydrate foods and drinks, high sugar foods and drinks, we just have to stop eating those. They cause inflammation inside our body. They're bad for our heart. They're bad for our brain. And just have to stop doing it. Drink water instead, maybe some tea. That's great. Lots of other things you can drink that are not a problem. Drug use, yeah, that's a problem. I mean, you remember the commercials. This is your brain on drugs. Yep, it can cause a lot of damage. It can cause problems that look a lot like ADD. Some of you know people who are going to be arguing for the right to smoke pot every day. And I'm going to tell you, it's a bad idea. You're going to go find newspaper clippings. You're going to argue with me. You're going to do whatever. You're going to say, oh, no, it's great for you. It's great. Okay. I'm just telling you, when you hit that 80-year-old mark, you're going to be on that category, not the category I want to be in. So you're doing stuff to your brain, smoking cigarettes and smoking marijuana. I would just recommend you just stop doing that. Alcohol abuse, certainly some alcohol is just not problematic. But abusing it, yeah, it is. And certainly if you're addicted to alcohol, you want to get treatment for that. Now, when do you know if you have an alcohol problem? If you go to the sources of people who treat alcoholism, they'll tell you 7 drinks a week or more, you have a drinking problem. Now I've had people who will do about 70 or 80 drinks a week tell me they don't have a problem, and their trunk in their car is just filled with beer cans. It's a problem. But what the alcohol is doing to your brain is also problematic. So you don't want to abuse alcohol. I would just have to tell you, no more than like a drink a day. If you actually want to keep your mind going into your 80s, that's it. Excessive caffeine consumption. This is my problem. No more than 2 cups of coffee a day. So I can do that. I can do 2 cups a day, and I can restrict it to that, and so can you. So that is pretty good. And we're talking about a day, right? So we're talking about 14 cups of coffee a week, and that's a lot. It's kind of a lot of coffee. So if we can keep it under that, you're kind of going to be okay. If you can keep it in that 7 to 14 a week range in there, you're even better. Obesity is bad for your brain. The heavier you are, it's bad. The more your head is like one size and your body is too big for your head, that's just bad for you. So the more overweight we are, the worse it is for our brains long term, and it's starting to damage your brain even in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. So lose weight, just lose that 20 pounds, and if you need to lose 20 more, then lose them. So obesity is bad. Inactivity is bad. Now the great phrase is, when you move, your brain grooves. That's a great phrase. Remember those grooves in your brain, the top of your head? So when you move, you're making your brain not only perform better, but actually structurally change to optimize itself. So you want to move, you want to exercise. Inactivity is an enemy of brain performance. So keep moving, keep exercising, keep doing that. High stress, chronic high stress. We all have times where we hit stressful situations. We all get that. We all have times when someone that we love has passed away. We have times we lose jobs. We have times maybe good things happen, that we get promoted way beyond what we think we can do. Somebody has a car accident, whatever it might be. We have these periods of time that are times of high stress. But if we are like swimming in the pool of stress every day, week, month, and a year, this is bad for the brain as well. So we have to learn how to manage our stress. If you need to get professional help for that, do it. You need to find a stress coach kind of guy, do it. But you want to be able to manage stress. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, I ask clients all the time, what's your stress level? Scale of 1 to 10. And neurofeedback's awesome for that, by the way. That I have the the high performance neurofeedback, direct neurofeedback. People will come in, they'll say it's an 8 or a 9, and 20 minutes later, it's a 2, and they're doing great. Whatever your stress level's at, you need to kind of have a stress level of 2. If your stress level is 0, you just stay on the sofa. That's a problem. So you want your stress level to be a 2. You want to be responsible at paying your bills and taking care of your kids and all those kinds of things. So that's sort of the optimal stress level. But if your stress level is an 8, 9, or 10 all the time, every day for weeks, you got to get help for that. It's bad for your brain. Chronic anger. If you're somebody who blows up a lot, that could be from a temporal lobe problem, and you probably need to get that checked out. If it's like explosive rages, it's a neurological issue. You need to go get it checked out. It might be a certain kind of seizure. It might be things like a growth inside your brain. You do want to get that looked at. But if you're just an angry person, your dad was an angry person, grandpa was an angry person, and you're just an angry person, bad for your brain. So you want to work on that. You want to learn how to have peace in your life instead. And to go along with that, unforgiveness and bitterness. They are awful. Take it from me. It's awful. I have on my website at douglascowan.me. That's the website for my counseling practice. douglascowan.me. I have a free ebook for you on forgiveness that I've written through the last 5 years as I've worked through some issues myself. This is a big deal to be able to forgive people who have hurt you. And carrying unforgiveness, carrying bitterness is bad for your health, it's bad for your heart, it's bad for your brain. So please let it go. Please learn how to forgive people in a way that it will just release you and set you free from that. It's very important. Chronic depression for more than a year, can also be this kind of problem. Can also lead to problems later on in life. So you want to get that fixed. Any depression that lasts more than a month, you should probably seek help from a professional and get treatment. Get treatment for that. Also, long-term anxiety. And like if you're having a series of panic attacks, anxiety attacks, something like that, you want to get treatment for that. Because long-term, if you let that keep going, that also ends up being bad for your brain down the road. Diabetes. If you suffer from that, then you want to make sure that you have the best treatment money can buy for that, because that'll also lead to brain problems down the road. And if you're borderline for that, you want to start eating perfectly so that you never become a diabetic. So again, we're back to the food issue because that is so very, very important. Hypertension, again, this problem for the brain. How about sleep? Less than 7 hours of sleep a night on average for fairly long term is potentially problematic. I know there are some of you out there that just like, you need 4 hours of sleep. That's all you need. You're rare. You know, there's a bell curve in everything. If you're in that 1% over there on that side of the bell curve, okay. But for most of us in the middle of the bell curve, we need at least 7 hours of sleep. 8 hours is better. If you can afford it, if you can afford to just go to bed early, like 9:30 or 10, and wake up when you want to wake up, then that's a great lifestyle. Most of us need alarm clocks, so you want to just go to bed, so get yourself 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night. Low levels of vitamin D can also be problematic. It's okay to take vitamin D. It's okay to do that. It's okay to close your eyes without your glasses on, sit out in the sunshine for 10, 15 minutes a day, let your body soak that up. That's okay too. Vitamin D is very important in brain health. You want to check your hormone levels? So men, it's testosterone. That's what you got to check. You got to care about that. You want to keep that in the normal ranges or in the optimal ranges. And for you ladies, it's estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. All three of them are important for you when it comes to brain health. So ask your doc about that. Ask your doc how to keep those in harmony and at appropriate levels. Other things to wrap this up, there are other things like brain injuries, TPIs, concussions, repeated banging of the head. Now, this is football stuff. we all want our kids to play football. And from a therapist point of view, I just got to ask, like, why? It's the repeated bangings in the head from practice and games. Practice, you do that 5 days a week, and games once a week that cause the brain problems long term. So you take a professional football player, we've had like 15 of them commit suicide in the last few years because their brains were turning to mush, and so they shoot themselves in the chest and ask people to study their brains. They knew it was a problem. When you think about, look at the video on the DouglasCowan.me website where there's Jesse Sapolo and Kermit Alexander talking about their head injuries from playing pro football for 13, 14, 15 years. And they didn't just start playing pro football. They went from junior high to high school to college to professional football. So they had like 30 years of banging heads with other people 30 times a day, 40 times a day, and professional football like 60 times a day. So it's not just the big hits that does that. It's the constant banging. Soccer players are at risk for this as well. And so we need to be really careful about the sports that our kids play, and we need to kind of just manage that because we're looking at the problems that go on practice after practice, season after season, year after year. Please consider that. Unhealthy habits lead to unhealthy brains. So just consider what you do every day. And you know what? Unhealthy peer groups will lead to unhealthy habits. You are kind of going to mimic the most influential people in your life. So if they have good habits, you'll mimic good habits. And if they have bad habits, you will mimic bad habits. So check your peer group, see if it's helping you to survive, to live into your 80s with a sharp mind, or if they're going to lead you to problems. If you're the one with the sharp mind, you're going to be taking care of those who make bad decisions. So consider that. All right, let's just kind of wrap that up there. We're going to make a follow-up video here pretty soon that'll have the good things that you can do to keep your brain healthy. And then we're also going to talk about things that you can do, skills that you can learn to help you learn faster, bigger, stronger, faster, super fast learning. How can you do that? Whether you have an ADHD brain or a not ADHD brain, either way, these are skills you can learn to learn way better in a classroom situation when you read books, for work, or what have you. So these are videos that are going to follow this one in this series. Thanks.